diving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raw Recovery with Dion Miller. It is Friday. Friday is payday, right? What usually happens on payday? Well, we get to pay our rent, right? We pay our bills nowadays. That's what we do. So, welcome to Friday movie night. Today we have Heather on the show. I'm looking forward to talking with Heather. So again, our promoter Jill introduced me to Heather, and I've been able to speak with her a couple of times. We had some great conversations. Heather is a peer family coach for partnership to end addiction, and she's going to go into that. She's going to go into that some for us. I'm really looking forward to that. And she is also the owner of Full Family Recovery. Okay, which is a newer program starting up that is based around families, and it's a family disease, guys. And the whole family gets sick, so we all need support, right? Heather, welcome to the program, or welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking your time today and being on.
Thank you, Dion. Thanks for having me.
Certainly. So Heather is, we talked a little bit before, and so I'm going to qualify something here. So Heather was saying, Heather's had some long-term sobriety, and she kind of felt like, old timers tend to tell their stories a lot. So she's going to qualify everything, and it's still going to be the usual course of things. It's just that Heather would rather spend most of her time in what it's like now, and what recovery is like for her now. And that's where she prefers to. And I find that people with long-term sobriety tend to talk more about that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the show, Heather. And it is now Raw Recovery with Heather. It's all yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I still plan to talk about what happened, or what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, but in relationship to what happened to my family in the
Sure.
last couple of different years. I
Okay.
have been sober for all of my adult life.
Yeah.
I got sober when I was 21, and
Okay.
I have a grandbaby now. So
Good
make
for
your own
you.
make your own assumptions about how old you think I might be.
I'm not even going to
Um,
guess.
yeah. Um, and like I had said earlier, I think there's plenty of stories floating around out there from people with long-term sobriety about,
Sure.
how they got sober and what life's like today. And um, my sobriety story, honestly, is really not actually very pretty.
Okay.
My years of sobriety have been actually really, really hard, and that might be a story for another day.
Okay.
Talking about how people can, how I've stayed sober through just about everything.
Everything. Yep.
Um, but what I want to focus on today is what happened as a recovering alcoholic married to another recovering alcoholic who
Mm-hmm.
raised our kids in sobriety and raised our kids around a program,
Mm-hmm.
and who thought we had pretty much had a lot of the answers as to what to do if
Sure.
anything ever happened with one of our kids. We had raised them in a sober environment. We were, 12-step program people. So we worked a program,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, air quotes for those out there
Yeah.
listening. Um, and our kids had never seen us, drink or take
Mm-hmm.
drugs or smoke cigarettes or, do anything like that. There was,
Or even old behaviors.
well, I can't claim that,
Okay.
because
All
what
right.
I've come to learn since all this has happened is that we were still practicing old behaviors. We just
Yeah.
didn't know we were doing that.
Yep.
Um, so I honestly thought, and I think my husband probably did too, that our kids were safe
Okay.
from alcohol and drug addiction. I don't think we were naive enough to think our kids would never you know, experiment
Experiment, yeah.
or, go to parties or, do anything like that. But I think we both thought they were safe.
Yeah.
We had broken the chain. That was the thing. We had broken the chain of addiction in our
Yeah.
family
The
because we were
generational.
right, because we were both sober.
Yep.
And so that's kind of the platform that we were working from.
Okay.
And in our youngest son, I'm not going to use his name because it's, his stories. You got me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. His story is his story, and I'm not going to break his anonymity, but
Thank you.
he had issues throughout life with some various things that we were always concerned might affect him. And as he got older, we started to see some things that concerned us. I had been concerned for a long time, but I didn't think it was drugs or alcohol. I thought it might be mental health issues,
Okay.
which we had gotten help for, and things seemed to kind of ebb and flow with him.
Okay.
And when he got to be 18, he left home right after high school. And my husband's career military, my father-in-law was career military, and I think he said something like, "I'm done being in boot camp. I'm out of here."
Mm-hmm.
And he moved across state lines to quote unquote marry a young lady he had met and spent
Okay.
6 weeks with. And that really concerned us greatly. And there was nothing we could say or do that could stop him. And it was a roller coaster, and that
Okay.
roller coaster didn't stop until March of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And in between, him turning 18 and he's 25 now, the situations got more extreme.
Okay.
The problems got elevated, and in there he started. Well, let me back up. I think he was probably already using to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking. I don't think drinking, because he's never really said he's never really had an attraction to that, but
Okay.
drugs for sure, maybe marijuana, and I don't know what else. But by the time he told us he was using, I think he'd probably been using for a while, if my spidey senses tell me anything.
Yeah.
And being an alcoholic myself, I know I have a little bit of an awareness of how these things go.
Yeah.
So I think when he was 21 or 22, he said that he was smoking, but if we weren't to worry about it, it was for his anxiety and to sleep at night, and it was all okay. And he was using it responsibly, and his dad and I were just honestly naive and thought, well, of all the drugs he could possibly take out there, I mean, pot's got to be one of the safest, right?
Yeah. That's that's the thought process behind it, but not for an addictive personality.
No. And really not, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, and I know there's lots of opinions out there on marijuana use, but what he was smoking was not the marijuana that I was smoking back in 1987. It just
changed
wasn't.
A lot, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what he was smoking, but it was not the chill factor marijuana that I was smoking back in high school and early college, because he was smoking, and man, it was crazy town.
Was it?
Oh, yeah. And long story short, from 21 to 22 to 25, he wound up married and divorced in very short order. He became homeless. He had a psychotic break from reality.
Okay.
He spent 2 years on the street. We live in the Midwest, and we retired from the military and moved to the Midwest, and he stayed on the East Coast, so we were separated, and he was on the streets.
Okay.
When he first became homeless, it was winter, And so it was very cold,
Yep.
and that was very, very hard
Mm-hmm.
for us as parents.
Mm-hmm.
And there really wasn't a lot of reasoning with what to do, how to handle this, where to
Mm-hmm.
go. And because all we knew was 12-step background, which is filled with tough love and
Mm-hmm.
let them hit bottom, and they've got to want it. You can't make them want it. You're powerless. You didn't cause it. You can't cure it. And that whole phraseology that you hear in Al-Anon. Um, we had learned and were being told detach.
Mm-hmm.
Now they say detach with love, but how do you
Yeah,
do
that's
that?
it. Yeah, how do you do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, what exactly does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I knew how to detach was just to detach completely.
Yeah, that's how we're taught in the 12 steps.
Hmm.
That's how we detach, we remove ourselves.
Yeah, and that was gut wrenching
I
and
bet it was.
impossible.
It was. It
No,
is. I
it.
have children of my own that went through the same thing, and it's so much different. It's just
Hmm. Yeah. So, and that started a couple of year just nightmare of watching him go from bad to just I don't even have words for how bad it got.
mm-hmm.
And um I did the only thing I knew to do. I went to Al-Anon,
Mm-hmm.
and it did help me.
Sure.
I am grateful for Al-Anon. It did help me. It helped me.
Mm-hmm.
It did help me. You said earlier, you weren't practicing the isms, the dysfunctional behavior. What I learned in Al-Anon is I was still practicing
Okay.
dysfunctional behaviors. I still was trying to control everything in my
Okay.
family. I was still trying to make everybody happy. I was still trying to keep anybody from ever feeling any kind of pain. I
Okay.
was still trying to be a perfect parent,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., different from the way I grew up. Um, I overmothered, you know,
Okay.
both of my kids. Um, I didn't allow for natural consequences growing up
Okay.
because I didn't want them to ever hurt or feel any pain.
All right.
And it was really a reaction to the way I had grown up.
Sure.
And so I learned these things in Al-Anon, and I learned that I had to quit doing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned that I was powerless over my son, and there was absolutely nothing I could do but wait for him to
Mm-hmm.
hit bottom. But my son was living at the bottom.
Yeah, he was there in your
Hmm.
eyes.
Yep. Well, he was living in the middle of winter
Mm-hmm.
next to a dumpster
I've
with
been
no
there.
food,
Yep.
no clothing,
Yep.
nowhere to go, no cell
Mm-hmm.
phone,
And it's 10
addicted to
degrees
drugs.
outside. Yeah.
So anybody that says that's not the bottom, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for getting upset, but
You don't need to apologize at all.
that's he was living at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't need tough love. He needed hope.
He needed a roof over his head.
He needed hope, and he needed a way out.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't see that, and I couldn't see that. And I honestly didn't know what to do because I was being told there wasn't anything I could do.
Yeah.
And so what do you do when you're faced with that problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I know today, and I'll get to this at some point, is that there are thousands of families that are faced with this
Mm-hmm.
every day, that are faced with this exact same situation with their kids or their family members. They have family members that have hit the bottom of the barrel, and they're being told there's nothing you can do,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And what I found out once I began to really seek out answers was that there are things that you can do.
There are. No.
There are ways and methods and tools and strategies that you can employ with your family member or your loved one
Mm-hmm.
that can motivate them to want to change, that can motivate them to want to seek recovery.
Yep.
And the number one thing that I learned through all of this is that I had to keep the doors of communication open with my son. And what that meant was that tough love had to leave the room
Mm-hmm.
and love had to take over.
Yeah.
That did not mean I had to condone his behavior.
Yeah.
It
Or let
didn't
him
mean,
cross boundaries or
right,
anything like
right,
that.
right. It didn't mean that I had to love the fact that he was, doing all kinds of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't mean that. It just meant that when he called, he had to know that no matter what he was doing, no matter how he was living, that his dad and I loved him.
Absolutely.
We accepted him and we would do whatever we could to help him within the boundaries we had set for him.
Yeah.
Because what we didn't
Good
want to
job.
happen, thank you. What we didn't want to happen was something tragic to happen to him
Yeah.
and him not
Be
know that
able
we loved him.
or not be able to reach out.
Right.
Um,
We wanted that door open
yeah.
with him.
When I
And
was
go
you,
ahead.
yeah. When I'm kind of relating to this to my story because my mom is kind of the president of tough love. Um, and even but I mean even she's changed at 35. She long-term sobriety. But when I was going through my stuff, she was like a year sober. So I mean, really, it's all she really could have probably done at the time. You know what I mean? She didn't have that yet, but that meant that I got put away during my teenage
Mm,
years, and that right there made me hate them for years. In fact, I divorced them because they
mm,
put me away and just pushed them straight. Now I have a great relationships with my mom and my dad, but I sometimes I wonder, would it have been different for me? So when my daughter started going through it, I made the decision that I wasn't going to do that to her. I'd made the decision that I was going to let her know, hey, yeah, things are going on, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'm not here. It doesn't mean that I don't care. So that the day when she was ready and the day came, she called me.
yeah. And I think that's the critical part of this is that as parents, I think it's almost inhumane to tell parents stop taking care of your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be a way to get the message to the parent. You can take care of your kids, but within these certain parameters.
Yeah,
And um, the word that's you hear constantly is if you help your kids at all, you're enabling them.
yeah,
You're
and
enabling. You're enabling, and enabling is it's doing for someone what they can do for themselves.
mm-hmm,
It's calling into work and lying for somebody
mm-hmm,
when they're not when they're hungover or whatever it is they are, but legitimately offering help to someone that legitimately needs help, that is not enabling.
nope,
That's helping someone.
no,
And that someone could be your child, it could be your husband, it could be your neighbor.
mm-hmm,
And somewhere along the line, I took it to mean that if I helped my son in any way, shape, or form, I was enabling
then I
him.
was a bad person.
I was a bad parent and I was prolonging the process and he would continue to use for a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm,
Therefore, I could help him in no way, shape, or form. And that just made me feel terrible
sure it
because
did.
that's what I did. And it made me feel like a horrible parent. And so,
I'm sorry.
yeah, it was, but I'm not alone.
No,
I'm
you're
not
not.
unique.
You are not. And thank you
Yeah.
for saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. I know lots of
There's
people.
hundreds and thousands of us.
Yeah. I mean, you talk to parents that I talk to parents frequently, and I've heard this. I mean, I took when I went through my training with the Partnership to End Addiction to become a family peer coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one. I mean, we did a whole training on
Yeah.
this, you
Well,
know?
and you probably remember because you've been in, I was a CAC in 1989, so I've been, I don't have continuous, but anyway, just the length of time. If you remember back then, it was like the stats were like 1 in every 10 people or whatever has an alcoholic parent or child. Now, everybody with the
Hmm.
opiate addiction, it's wide open. I don't know of anybody that doesn't know somebody that isn't addicted to something anymore.
Yeah. The stats on addiction, as far as the number of people that are affected by or impacted by, I don't even know how you count those numbers
I wouldn't
anymore.
know how you would anymore.
They're everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, and people, I think I'm not going to mention anything, but I talked to someone
sure.
recently and they said, "Oh, I haven't told anybody. I'd never tell anybody about this." And I said, "Why?" And they said, I don't want anyone to know that this is happening to my child."
Yeah. The
And
stigma.
yeah, she said, "I don't, I'd be so ashamed and embarrassed." And I thought, so how, that's the numbers you and I are talking about are just the ones that are known about, not
Exactly.
even the hidden numbers.
The denial numbers.
Hmm.
I mean, how much leeway do you give for those? So
Yeah.
I tend to base things off of what I see going on. And I could sit down and talk to, a quote unquote normie. I guarantee you I will find an addiction. Just
Hmm.
give me 5 minutes. Well, let us talk. It may not be you, but it'll be somebody in your family.
Hmm.
And, and of course, yeah, I think it's natural for us as parents to protect our children from the outside forces, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So when somebody says that, I get it. As a parent, I understand. There's some things my children do that, you know, I wonder.
Yeah.
You guys, I gave a really big open-eyed expression. I forget that we're not on video. So, um, yeah, but there again, and there used to be a lot of stuff for families, and that kind of disappeared too. So
Hmm.
I really like the fact that we are, as a community, getting back to the family disease.
Hmm.
Nancy Reagan started that. I love Nancy Reagan. I loved her prevention program. Um, yeah, a lot of people made fun of it, but you knew what it was, and it was geared towards prevention or educating people
Hmm.
on addiction and
Yeah.
alcoholism.
Yeah. And I think education is a huge part of this. Educating families, educating our police force,
Yeah,
educating our medical providers, the stigma
professionals.
that's attached to the professional community. It's there, this, you can look at the numbers of how, if you have anything on your medical record that designates you as a someone with a recovery background, your
Mm-hmm.
medical care isn't as good as someone else's. Same thing with if you're picked up by the police for a speeding ticket
Mm-hmm.
and anywhere on your record there's a background in substance abuse,
Yep.
you're automatically considered suspicious.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
there
and
needs.
I don't know if they're doing this in Colorado. I haven't heard of it yet, but from my understanding, there's going to be mental health workers riding around with police officers now for, DV situations or things
Hmm.
that are involving that, which I think is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I really think as a recovery coach, it's my job to go meet those people where they're at, not them coming to me.
Hmm.
And we're actually doing that on the show. We have a doctors coming on, we have lawyers coming up, we have, you know, so we have a lot of different professional people coming on because I have a kick-ass promoter. So there's your plug, Jill. So, that's what I was really into. But I'd really like to hear more on the partnership and addiction too.
Well,
Pretty interesting.
that's where I was gonna,
Okay, so I'll be
you
quiet
know,
now. That's back to you.
well, what I was gonna, I've talked about what it was like, but what happened was, I started looking into alternatives
Mm-hmm.
to those, traditional programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not putting those down at all. Please
Nope.
hear me. I'm not putting
Yep.
them down.
Got it.
But the first one I found was, and I'll plug her, and you know her, is Amber Hollingsworth.
Love
her
her.
YouTube channel called Put the Shovel Down.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a master addictions counselor who has a YouTube channel and a
Yep.
practice. She has her own professional practice and she teaches the craft method.
She
And
is
that's
fantastic. I
yes.
love Amber.
Yes. And the craft method is just a method of it's a different communication
Mm-hmm.
style that you can use with your family member who's struggling with addiction to help you build better bonds, to help
Mm-hmm.
the lines of communication stay open, and it teaches you a different way. And that was my first toe in the water of, there is something I can do.
Mm-hmm.
There is a different way that my husband and I can be reacting and
Mm-hmm.
responding to this. And I started listening to everything she put out.
She gives a lot of power, man. She gives
Oh,
you. She really builds you. That's what I like about her so
she,
much is just
she
how she presents it and how you say things matters, man.
yeah.
It does.
How language matters, how you say things matter. There's a huge difference between, if you don't stop using, we're kicking you out to
Mm-hmm.
versus, your dad and I have discussed this and this is our boundary. We love
Mm-hmm.
you. We'll help you find treatment, but if you continue to use in the house, we're not going to be able to have you here.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two totally different conversations. It's that
Yes.
you're saying the same thing, but the way you're saying it,
Mm-hmm.
one is tough love and confrontational, and the other is having a healthy boundary but being said in love. They're
Mm-hmm.
very, very different. Which one do you think is keeping that door open with that child?
Exactly.
Now,
Even
the
if they
child isn't
decide to leave,
right.
that
The
door is
child's
still
not going to
open.
like either one of those necessarily. It doesn't mean the child's
Mm-hmm.
going to go, "Yay, they're loving me through
Yeah,
this."
yay, we're gonna have a year.
Yeah,
No, it's yeah.
but the chances that that child's going to come back at some point and know they can call you if they want help
Mm-hmm.
goes significantly up on that second example. And that's what I started to learn with Amber. Her big thing, one of the first things that I watched with her was one where she said, "Don't put yourself in a position where you're the bad guy."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, "Oh my gosh, we've been making ourselves the bad guys for a long
Amber,
time
quit
now."
reading my mail.
And from there, I found the Partnership to End Addiction,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole nother program. They're a nonprofit out of New York, and
Okay.
their entire mission is to help families
Mm-hmm.
that are suffering
Fantastic.
with they've been severely impacted by addiction in their family, and they offer all kinds of support. They offer parent coaching, which is what I do
Mm-hmm.
for them as a volunteer. They offer all kinds of. They have weekly, weeknight, and Saturday morning support groups that are free that you can log on Zoom, just like we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
They have booklets, pamphlets, you
Nice.
name it. They offer all kinds of support materials to families that are
Mm-hmm.
suffering through substance abuse with the family member. And through there, they asked me if I wanted to be a parent recovery coach with them, and I signed up for that program and went through it. And from there, I found the Center for Motivation and Change.
Okay.
And that is a program run by Dr. Jeff Foote and Ken Carpenter. And
Okay.
they wrote the book Beyond Addiction. And it's all
Ah,
about
okay.
the science and the science behind addiction
Mm-hmm.
and motivational interviewing and all of the things that go with. And if anybody wants, you can go to their website. It's
Yeah, that's
Center for
fantastic stuff.
Motivation and
Yeah.
Change. Yeah.
Especially if you're a recovery coach.
Mm-hmm.
Those books are fantastic.
Yeah. And the training through the Partnership to End Addiction for the family peer coaching was phenomenal. I could not believe I have been sober 30 years, Dion, and I had learned stuff in that coaching class about addiction
Okay.
that I never knew.
Okay.
I learned, I mean, they go into why does someone use? Why
Mm-hmm.
do people use
Yeah.
substances? And I just always thought, well, I'm an alcoholic.
Cuz.
Because I'm an alcoholic. That's why I did it.
Yeah, that's
But
a
they go,
scientific term right there. Cuz.
or it's a disease. I
Yeah.
have the disease of alcohol. That's why I use.
Mm-hmm.
And they go into the fact that there is an instant reward for
Mm-hmm.
using. It might be an emotional reward
Yep.
or a mental reward or a physical reward or a social reward. And I learned all these things, and kid you not, I came out of that training and thought, I really have a lot more compassion for myself,
Mm-hmm.
for my husband, my mom, my son, because I understand now what has been driving a lot of this behavior in
Yeah.
myself and in other people. It
Yep.
made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And when it made sense, I could have compassion where
Yeah.
maybe in the past I would not have.
Mm.
And that was huge. That was a huge breakthrough for me.
That's a big
So,
switch. Good on
oh, it was
you.
huge. It was a huge switch. And that was for a parent coaching training. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even a recovery coaching
Yeah.
training. And I was shocked. I was like, where's this been all these years?
Mm-hmm.
I've learned all this from a parent coaching training about myself as an alcoholic and an addict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From I was really shocked by that. So, where we're at today, back in December of last year, 2019, my son was here briefly.
Okay.
He had been here this past fall, and he had a period of clean time.
Okay.
We knew he had some mental health issues. We had tried to get him help for that.
Okay.
Hadn't been very successful.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor had given him a prescription for depression and anxiety, and
right.
unbeknownst to us, it was the wrong type of medication,
Oh,
which made things worse.
worse.
And by probably sometime in October of 19, he had begun using marijuana again.
All right.
And by December, he was pretty far gone.
Mm.
And he left. He found a plane ticket and first went to Vegas and then hopped his way back to the East Coast where he really, I guess, wanted to be. And
sounds like a last hurrah to me.
I don't really know what it was, because he was pretty much he had a break with reality.
Okay. All right.
So I don't really know what it was, other
what it
than
could have been. Sure.
He was desperate.
Sure.
I think at that point. And I had thought it had been bad in 18 when he was homeless, but this was so much worse. So much worse. And yeah, it got a lot worse.
Okay.
But and it got worse for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful that I had some of the tools that I have, because it did allow us to keep the doors open. It allowed us to keep the conversation open.
Yep.
It allowed us to keep the bonds of love with him, no matter what he was saying or doing, because by this point he was saying and doing some pretty out there stuff.
Okay.
And if I hadn't known that love was the major factor of importance, I could see where I would have at some point just said, "Don't call us ever again."
Yeah, and then what would have happened?
Yeah, the door would have been slammed shut.
And he wouldn't have known where to go, and I don't think he would have gotten the same result.
No.
I don't.
And so in March of this year, he was involuntarily committed by the police to a hospital. And he was there 3 weeks, and which was a good thing, honestly. It was what he needed.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't safe to himself or to others.
Yeah.
And he obviously had some pretty severe issues going on. And from there, he towards the end of his time there, he was calling me every day. And he was very medicated on Haldol, so we had some interesting conversations. But towards the end, he said, "Mom, there's something really wrong with me." And I said, "Yeah, I know there is." And he said, "Would you please help me?" And I said, yeah, I will. And from there, through a series of miraculous events, he
Mm-hmm.
wound up in a dual diagnosis treatment program, long-term treatment program down in Florida, and he's been
Awesome.
there. He's been
Yeah.
there ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what we found out once he got down there is that he has a very serious mental health issue
Wow.
that
Okay.
he's had probably all of his life, but
Mm-hmm.
that morphed when he was a young, an older teenager,
Okay.
which is what we saw when he was 18 and didn't understand.
And yeah, something had happened and you didn't know
Hmm.
what was happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, all of that using, all of those drugs, all of the behavior, he was trying to manage his mental health
Yeah.
and he didn't know how.
Yep.
And he was overwhelmed, he was afraid, he
Mm-hmm.
was scared, he didn't know what to do, he didn't know
Yeah.
why he felt the way he did, he didn't understand what was going on with him, and he
Mm-hmm.
was using because of that.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that either. We didn't know that that was what was going on with him.
And that almost seems legitimate. I mean, he
But
was
how
just trying
many
to take care of it himself, it sounds
but how
like, and
many
it went
alcoholics and
wrong.
addicts how many alcoholics and addicts do you know, myself included, that are like that?
Exactly.
So many of us.
And isn't it weird that I mean, addiction, alcoholism look just like a mental illness. Like
Mhm.
I've been diagnosed with PTSD. And PTSD looks a lot like alcoholism. That's why you can't be diagnosed for a lot of things till you're like 6 months sober,
Yeah.
because it just looks so much alike.
Yeah.
So what you saw was legitimate, though. What went through your head was you were seeing addiction, and in a
Right.
sense, you were.
Right. Well, he does have a
Yeah.
drug addiction.
Hmm.
He will never be able to use substances safely
Correct.
again. Um, one day at a time, he hasn't picked up for 7 months.
Hmm.
Um, God willing, he won't pick up today. That's all we have is today.
Hmm.
That's what my husband and I focus on with him is
Yeah.
he's safe today. He's healthy today. He's in a good place today. Um, that's all any of us have that are in recovery is today. Um, so he is someone who has suffered with addiction, but he also has a very real and prevalent mental health addiction mental health issue.
Hmm.
And if that is not treated, then
You
it
go right
would be
back.
impossible. Yeah, it'd be
Hmm.
impossible to stay sober. And so, that's what I was saying when I was talking about helping with understanding.
Hmm.
Families have to understand that there's more behind addiction than just I want to feel good or I
Yes.
like using drugs. I was sitting in a training with a class, and somebody said, "Well, we all have bad days. We all feel down. We all feel depressed. We all have trouble in social situations."
Sure.
And I said, "Yes, we all do. But for the addict or the alcoholic, we need immediate relief.
Hmm.
I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
I I'm not a doctor,
No.
not a neuroscientist. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is."
Yeah, that's a fact. And but once I know that, and I don't need to really know why in order to work on that and be aware of it.
Well, some parents, I guess, feel like they need to know why that is.
Yeah.
And my whole point is I don't know why. Does it matter why
Yeah.
your child is like that?
Yeah. Well,
Now you
I kind of feel like I'm arguing with God when I ask why.
mhm. It
So
just is. It just is. And what you have to deal with now is today. Now you have the
yeah,
information. What do you do with it?
exactly.
Do you punish that person because they have this, or do you figure out how to interact with that person now?
Hmm.
Do you
And
figure out
have
how to
compassion.
communicate? Yeah,
Yeah.
and have compassion. And so, he's doing okay. our family is doing a lot better.
Good.
I won't say we're 100% over
And
all of it.
that's okay.
It's been a long journey, a very long journey. Some of us are more healed from it than others.
Yeah.
You know, it affected more than just myself, my husband. You know,
Oh,
his siblings, his grandparents,
friends,
his aunt. You know,
cousins,
yeah, it affected a lot of
neighbors,
people.
police,
Yeah.
fires,
Mhm.
therapists. Yeah,
Mhm.
we affect a lot of people.
Mhm. Yeah. So, you know, my like I was telling you earlier, I could certainly I am a certified recovery coach and I could help people in new recovery and
Mm-hmm.
I could help coach them through the perils of their first, 30, 60, 90,
Yeah,
100 days or, whatever it might be, because I've done a lot of that in the past. But my real passion is to help families because
yeah.
there's so little out there for families.
And that's why you're starting the full family recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want to help people that don't know what to do.
Yeah. That we're in the situation that you were in. Yeah. Now, this is kind of the way that I see it because I'm an AA. Yeah. Okay. I love
I am
AA. I go to
too.
me, but AA is not the only way to recovery, and AA is not the only, um, the book was written in 1932. We know a lot more now. We
Mhm.
understand a lot more. And it says in the big book, we will learn, we're going to know more. It says it
Mhm.
right there on page 164. We're going to know more. It says, go talk to your doctors, talk to therapists, talk to other people. It even says it's not the only way. So therefore, tough love is not the only way to get through to your kid. Now that might be a situation, but maybe not calling it tough love, you know. Um, but there again, I hear you saying, it's more we need to get back because it used to be we used to have it used to be family used to be very big
Mhm.
when it came to this. So I'm not sure. Maybe it was low on the totem pole. Corona happened and it just kind of fell apart. Um, so are you going to be practicing from home? Is this going to be like a telehealth
Mhm.
for
Like
you?
a
So
virtual.
anybody in the country,
Mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah, a virtual coaching. My life isn't really set up to where I can do much outside of virtual coaching. I've still got people at home that depend on me for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do it around my time and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's my intent
Yeah.
is to do it from home
Yeah.
as a virtual coaching
Yeah.
practice.
I do all mine virtual.
Mhm.
It
And I think
it
you can
allows
help
me. Go
I
ahead.
think you can help more people that way
That's
too,
it.
because you're
Yeah.
not limited to a certain geographical
Mm-hmm.
area, and anybody from anywhere can seek out your help
Mm-hmm.
if they need it or want it.
And
And
and it
that
frees
would
up
be my goal.
time and it frees up money so that I can be even more helpful.
Yeah.
So I think even after this goes, after the coronavirus is done or whatever, um, telehealth is still going to be a very big proponent. It was
Yeah.
before it even started. So,
Yeah. Well, and with the way that the opioid epidemic is going, I don't think there'll
hmm
be a lack of need for something like this anytime soon.
correct.
I mean, the rates on addiction have skyrocketed
hmm
during during the
During COVID.
pandemic.
Yeah.
They were bad. They were already really bad, but they're so much worse now.
And
And I don't look for that number to go down, unfortunately.
anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was a crisis is now an epidemic.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's truly a shame. I mean, it really is. And you and I have talked about how this needs to be a grassroots effort and,
hmm
community level, local level effort of people that come together to seek out solutions to this. And, to me, this feels like a part of that.
Yeah.
It's something that I can do um, to help, even if it's, you always just say, if I help one person, it's worth it,
hmm Yeah.
and that's your 12th step right there,
hmm
service and giving back and helping somebody up. And um there have been a lot of people that have helped me along the way
Yeah.
as we've traveled this journey with my son. And I just, you know, for years and years and years, I gave back through the 12-step programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I reached a certain point and I was telling Jill, I just got exhausted,
Yeah.
you know, but I just feel like this has been such a life-changing, truly life-changing experience with my
Mm-hmm.
son,
Yeah.
that it would almost be, hate to use the word criminal, but
Okay.
it would almost be criminal not to reach back down and help somebody else that was
Yeah.
suffering,
Yeah.
because the parents, I don't for one second discount what my son went through,
No.
because
No.
it was horrific.
Yeah.
Um, but I do know that what the families are going through is just a nightmare, and
It
they need
can be.
help too.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times the addict or alcoholic might get help and they start getting quote unquote spiritual, and the family doesn't move along with that.
Mhm.
My
Yep.
wife had a big fear when I got sober, because most people that get sober don't stay together because they don't grow together.
Yep. Yep.
And so I promised her I wasn't going anywhere. I'm like, oh no, trust me, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Not ain't
Yeah.
happening here. So um, the partner to end addiction. You are a peer family coach over there. Let's do
The
a little bit of
it's
plugging on the full family also. What were you saying?
it's the
Pa-
partnership to
Oh,
end addiction.
partnership to end addiction.
And they can be found at www.drugfree.org. And
That's who
they have
used
a
to give us our money when I was in another thing called the West Side Drug Free Youth Team
mm,
back in the 90s, and they gave us our money. They were the drug free
mm.
guys. Yeah. Um, how does somebody get in touch with you? Can they get in touch with you? Website, Facebook, phone? You want to hand out a phone number and
Yeah,
email?
for right now, just my phone number.
Okay.
And that would be 765 318 7330.
All right. 765 318
318.
7330 for you
Yep.
guys listening.
Yep.
Then, Heather, thank you very much for coming on and bring a unique story. Thank you. That
You're
was
welcome.
that was um you know that's why I love having people come on and saying, yes, you can talk about what you want to talk about, because sometimes people don't want to necessarily cover their story again, and something, and they feel passionate about something. So I'm glad that Raw Recovery is here to be able to do that. Kind of like when I was telling you, of course you talk about this. This isn't my show. It's your show today. So my job is to make sure you're comfortable and you get what you need. So thank you very much for coming on and doing that. That was definitely different, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you bringing your passion on about the families. I really do.
Well, thank you for having me. It was nice to talk with you and to talk about this, and I hope that somebody listening out there feels encouraged by it.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You know, we all have people in our lives that we love very much. Maybe it's not your daughter or your son. And you're going to be told, well, you can't do that because you're too close. Kind of like on Law and Order. You can't take that case because you're too close to it. There are things that you can do. There really are. So reach out. To Heather, to myself, and we can get you the information you need so you can make good decisions around your children. Okay? And Heather and I have proved that it can be done because both of our kids are sober, and we did not utilize tough love. This has been Raw Recovery. Thank you guys for being here. I love y'all. You know I do. Peace out and have a day.